My name is Iman Hatibu from Policy Forum Secretariat, and I would like to welcome you to our September breakfast debate. On this debate, we're going to be talking about monitoring and evaluation processes for inclusive and adaptive programming for sustainable development. Now, we all know that monitoring and evaluation is a key factor for measuring results to bring sustainable development and to bring sustainable results as well. Now, as CSOs, we are supposed to monitor our programs for sustainable development in Tanzania. Now, with us today, we have institutions for inclusive development who are going to be taking us through a study or a paper that they did on monitoring and evaluation processes to bring sustainable development as CSOs and key stakeholders of Tanzania. Now, I'd like to welcome Mr. Makongo to the front. And I'd also like to welcome Gloria Sikustahili, also from I4ID, to occupy the front seat, as Mr. Makongo will proceed in taking us through the presentation for today. Yeah, thank you very much.
Habari za asubuhi. My name is Jafet Makongo. I work for Institutions for Inclusive Development, I4ID, and I'm accompanied by my colleague, Gloria Sikustahili. She will also be presenting. And we are here today specifically for one particular purpose. So the purpose of the session today, as you see, we want to share hands-on experience of monitoring and evaluation priorities and needs in an adaptive programming. Why? Why priorities? Because there are several actors, several stakeholders in the development process. Wote hawa wanataka kujua matokeo. Sasa kama wanataka kujua matokeo, wanataka matokeo gani? Wanataka lini? Wanataka kwenye format gani? Wanataka kwenye lugha gani? There are so many competing priorities and needs. And this is what we want to share with you, colleagues. The second one is obviously, once we have finished our sharing, we would appreciate if we can explore some ideas on how we can negotiate and strike a balance on these priorities. This does not mean that we are going to create something new, because sote tunafanya kazi na tunajua jinsi ambavyo tuna navigate through. So we want to share those experiences, which will be like an input on how we further do development. What I4ID is about. As you can see in the slides here, this is it's been a 5-year program starting 2016. We are being funded by DFID and the Irish Embassy. But we work through a consortium where we have partners. The main actor is Palladium Group International. And we have, locally here, we have partners. One of them is SNV. We have ODI, Overseas Development Institute in the UK. But also we are working with the BBC Media Action as partners in the consortium. The program actually, the purpose is to help the government to be more effective in delivering inclusive development. That's the purpose. We are supporting ongoing processes through government initiatives. And our adaptive program was developed in a framework of being lean, adaptive, flexible, but also bringing innovation into the processes. So you can see here we have a range of partners who we are working with. Our program, being adaptive, we decided not to take an adverse approach of deciding a theme, a location. So we just went in saying, let us see where the demands are. So we have ended up working with the different partners, various partners, both government, where we are supporting most of the government initiatives in inclusive education. Some of you may have seen about the Tanzania Sign Language initiative, of which we have facilitated to develop a Tanzanian Sign Language. And now there is a dictionary has been launched and about sign language to help learners and people to communicate through sign language. About solid waste management challenges in urban cities, we are also looking at areas around on how to bring about inclusive urban planning And our focus has been Kigamboni. You know about how Kigamboni is, and trying to help Kigamboni to move away from being a dormitory city to become an active entrepreneurship and business-oriented place. So the experiences around that on how we have done that inclusive, and now we have launched an inclusive land development plan for Kigamboni. But we are also working in urban water, supporting on how we can improve technologies of providing water with some of the water users associations, and with the partners in urban vending, which is Machinga. Urban vending is a big challenge, particularly for women, and here we have supported the process in Mwanza, trying to learn on how the needs of women, particularly those related to gender and inclusion, can be addressed in. Yeah, so there's if you go to our website, you'll see all the range of these programs. So, adaptive programming. This slide is just very, I think, a normal, we all know it, where in normal programs, we are developing like a linear, we used to develop linear programs with fixed logical frameworks, which takes us from the starting towards a goal. But through this innovation, which we are focusing on issues around outcomes, we are using a more flexible, nimble, and adaptive approach. So kimsingi inafanana kabisa na program nyingi tunazofanya za ushirikishaji. Kwa hiyo sio kitu kipya. Naomba tuelewe kwamba hatujaleta kitu tofauti hapa, ni yale ni lugha na jinsi tunavyoiformat, but you start from a very broad idea. Kikapu cha mahitaji ni kikubwa sana unapokwenda kwenye jamii. Sasa na kila mmoja ana kipaumbele chake. So how do you reach the priorities? Kutafuta msisitizo wa aina ya maendeleo tunayoyataka katika mawazo yale mengi yanayotoka katika makundi. Na in this process we allow people to ideate, kuleta mawazo mbadala. Watu wote walete mawazo mbadala until tufikie mahali ambapo tunakubaliana kwamba sasa hapa tunakwenda ku-create a solution. Co-creation ambayo pia inafanywa jointly inahusisha mazingira yote, na lazima yafanywe kwenye context ya kisiasa, ya kiuchumi na kijamii, kulingana na mahali ambapo au sekta ile unayofanyia kazi. Tungekuwa tuna muda mrefu tungetumia labda sekta moja to explain on how we have done it, particularly in Dar es Salaam here kwenye solid waste management, a big challenge kwenye manispaa ya Ilala, big challenge especially kwenye mitaa ile ambayo watu wengi wanaishi, watu wenye kipato cha kawaida, mimi sisemi maskini, watu ambao mazingira yenyewe hayaruhusu hata ukusanyaji wa taka as compared na hapa tulipo au Masaki na maeneo mengine. So that was a big challenge on how to reach, to find some new innovation which we bring to test out. Tunaijaribu, and in our program we have allowed ourselves to fail. And that was one of the key lessons which we learned, that there are times you may go with an idea and you realize along the way kwamba mbona hii haifanyi kazi. Alafu nasema jamani tuendelee, nasema tumefeli, tuache. Hii imetushinda, tuache, tunakubaliana wote. Na nadhani hii ni utamaduni tofauti na kwenye logical frameworks ambazo kama zilishakuwa fixed, you continue struggling on how to bring it back to normal. So this is like a pilot ambayo mnaijaribu, mna-scale out kwa kutumia sasa mfumo ule ambao tunaufanya katika masuala ya maendeleo jumuishi. So kwenye program yetu hii, just the second slide, kama mnavyoona hapo, is a few of our programs. Ya kwanza hii inaonyesha our inclusive urban planning Kigamboni. Ya pili ni kuhusu menstrual health management, ambayo masuala ya menstrual management yamekuwa ni challenge kwa sana nchini, but how do you ensure that watu maskini, akina mama wa kawaida, wasichana ambao wana mahitaji haya, especially katika maeneo ya rural areas, how do they access services at affordable prices, lakini yet private sector inayofanya hiyo kazi ikiendelea kupata faida yake, sio kuride on upon it. We have the urban vendors ambayo inaonyesha pale, mnaona kituo cha watoto. Often katika masoko mengi yanayojengwa, mnafikiri mtaona kina mama wanakuja sokoni na watoto wadogo, si ndio? Watoto hawa wengine wanataka kulala. Maeneo ya masoko yetu mnayajua mazingira yake, si ndio? Ni masafi. Lakini watoto wamo mle ndani. So how do you help watoto hawa pia mama yao wafanye kazi, lakini wao waweze kupata maisha ambayo ni bora? So kina mama anasema we need a center, angalau mtoto akitaka kulala awe pale, mtoto akitaka kupumzika awe pale, hata wakitaka kucheza na mama apate ruhusa kufanya muda wa kufanya kazi. So kama background, I will stop here ili nimkaribishe mwenzangu Gloria sasa atuchukue kwenye process ya topic of today, ambayo tunaongelea prioritizing competing monitoring needs and demands adaptive program. Na tukumbuke kwamba the lessons we are drawing here, they are not unique, they are not new. These are things which we have, but we felt that let us use this opportunity to share with you, so that in one way or another we can start negotiating, building our own capacity on how to negotiate with the donors. In this particular program, we are not targeting any particular stakeholder. Donors wana mahitaji yao, government, stakeholders, na sisi practitioners. So I will stop here na nimkaribishe Gloria, karibu.
Naitwa Gloria, sikustahili, natoka kwenye mradi wa I4D and ni monitoring and evaluation manager for mradi. So this is our MEL framework. As Mzee just said before, we have the component of the research. This component of the research helping us to understand the problem and to exploring the assumption of our problem. And also we are doing the political economy analysis to understand the power of our stakeholder or the power dynamics between our stakeholder we are working to. We have this informal reflection and formal reflection. And that is where our formal reflection are. We always call it quarterly strategic review because we are invited donors and stakeholders we are working with. So on that reflection, we always stop and reflect back on our intervention on what works well and what didn't work well and why. So after that reflection, we now are brainstorming or identify the solution for going forward. So in general, that is our MEL framework. It's not the project framework, this is just MEL framework. This is how we implement the monitoring and evaluation and learning. So I'm taking you direct to the article which we developed with my colleagues, which is, the title is Competing Monitoring and Evaluation Needs and Demand in Adaptive Program. We know in every program, the documentation is important. And somehow we document for our accountability, we document for the reflection, and also we document for the learning. But sometimes, because there is many users of this documentation, like the donors, the reviewers, the managers, and also the implementers, and sometimes the beneficiaries. So there is sometimes we got this challenge of striking the balance to document what, when, how, and for whom. So these are the challenge most of the time the programmers and the ME team we are facing. So after implementing the program for about 4 years, these are our 7 takeaways. The first one is all parties should understand the program theory of change and action during adaptive program. And this is the all party we are referring to the donors, the reviewers, other stakeholders we're working with, and also the implementers. We have to sit together to understand the theory of change. And all we know that the theory of change is the direction of the program, is the direction of what our assumption is and what our target is. So everyone, we have to sit down and to understand this theory of change. And while we understand this theory of change, that is when we have also to understand the demand and interest and concerning from the donors and the reviewers. So how are we doing this? This will always do it by reflection. As I stated before, like we have this quarterly reflection review. So that is where we sit down the donors, reviewers sometimes, and the stakeholder we're implementing with to state like this is our theory of change, and this is the action we did during we implementing our intervention. And also the reviewers and the midterm evaluator should understand the interest of implementer and the program manager rather than focus on the donor's interest. We all know like most of the time reviewers came because of the donor. They just want to review their program. So they are commissioned by the donors. And then when they come with their term of the reference to do their work. But sometimes the reviewers, they have also to understand the decision or interest of the implementer rather than focus only on the donor's interest. And by focus also for the implementers, it helps them to have the whole picture of the whole package rather than focus only on the donors. The second thing is utilization of information is the key and shapes what, when, and for whom to document. And this is how we have to clear and understand and the agreement on the purpose of the documentation in all parties. Like what does the donor want to see, what do the reviewers want to see, what do the implementers want to see, and what are the beneficiaries they want to see. So by clearing and putting our interests forward and agree, that is when you come to document, you will understand I have to document this for what and for whom. But also when you look at number 3, it says documentation needs and demand need to be negotiated and balanced. Yes, the donor, they will say like, I want to see 1, 2, 3 in my annual reviews. The reviewers, they say, these are the indicators we want to see when we come. While the implementer, the managers, they want to see 1, 2, 3 for their making decision. Also the beneficiary, they want to see this target. So where are we going to strike that balance? So there is like, because the managers and the implementers are the one in the field, and these are the one who always make the decision at the real time. So all of the time, we need to understand or we need to agree with the donors and the reviewer and the other stakeholder. Like they have to agree on what must be reported and documented rather than what might be reported and documented. When you go to number 4, donors must make choices and recognize their consequence on their signals. This is when we, the aid program, all we are working on the aid program, we know the donors, they have power when you come to their program. So any demand they come from the donor, for us is important. And this is like, sometimes it's called challenge. When the program is underperforming, we agree. There should be the critical observation. But there is this unfiltered comment and question come from the different staff of the donors to clarify, to justify. This is time consuming. We agree we have to do that. But sometimes it's very time consuming. At the same time, this implementer, we need to implement to improve that program. So sometimes when this question came to us, we always advise like they have to filter them because they come from one office. Instead of to come with different emails, they have to filter them and bring them at once. Or otherwise, the physical meeting is better than email for back and forth on justification and explain. Number 5 is reflection and documentation and related, but yet are different things. When we are doing the reflection most of the time, we as implementer and managers, we document what is useful for us. I'll go to the meeting, for the reflection meeting, I'll document what is useful for me as ME person to deliver my work, and also for the manager and for the SMTs. So this sometimes called the challenge when the reviewer came after 6 months and just want to make sense in each reflection. As other adaptive program, the reflection are more important, and we always do a lot of reflection, informal and formal. So when the reviewers came and say like, I can see in this 6 months you have like 20-something reflection. Where are the documentation? Sometimes it's hard to make sense on those reflections because sometimes it was informal reflection, sometimes of course it was formal, but I document what was for me to work or to deliver my work. So sometimes that's why I said before, we have to agree on what to document for whom and what and when. Syntheses occur most readily where discussions are well structured, like what, so what, and now what. Before that, before when we were starting our program, we always reflect, we go to the meeting room without any structure, and we just starting to reflect and discuss, and we come to end like we are always going by cycles. And then we pause and say, why don't we structure this reflection? So when we go, we always, the coordinator or the manager, so this is the situation right now, and so what? Is this situation, what does it mean for us as implementer? What does this situation mean for the donors or mean for the beneficiary? Then from there, what are we supposed to do? What works and what didn't work? And from there, what will we do? So by doing this structure, reflection, it helps you to unfold the intervention along the way. And then number 7, which is the last one, it says donors should consolidate and localize oversight function. We have the multiple level of oversight. It's a donor agency itself, there is annual reviewers, and there is external evaluator who always come to capture the lessons. So as the implementer, you have to be responsible for all these levels. But most of these people, annual reviewers and external evaluator, they're most of the time, they are not coming from the local institutions. They're just flying in to come to evaluate. They did a very good job, we agreed on that. But sometimes they miss the local perspective on the process and the result. So most of the time, you know, when you have the information or you have the data, to analyze that data and to get a very, very good story, you have also to combine with the context of that place. So most of the time they fail because they don't know the context. They just analyze the data and give you the information. So we see like involving the local institution in the external evaluator or the annual reviewers, it helps to bring this local perspective on the process and the result. And at the same time, it also helps to build the capacity of this local stakeholder in this institution for adaptive program. So this is our 7 takeaways. Before going forward, I'll welcome for the question or the comment. Karibuni.
A round of applause for Miss Gloria and Mr. Makongo once again. Louder, a bit louder, please. Thank you. So these are not new steps. This, like Mr. Makongo elaborated, as organizations, as individuals, as stakeholders of sustainable development, these are not new things. Maybe we are aware of them, or maybe we are not. But what I did grasp really quickly is that the theory of change is a very important component. It is the direction of the program. So it is very important that everybody in the organization understands it. Yes? And from the 7 takeaways, reflection and documentation, this is an important stage that we mostly forget. We are good at implementing, we are good at doing activities, but documentation and sitting back to reflect on what these activities are bringing, what are the impacts of these activities, the documentation. When I sit 5 years, 10 years, what did I do back then, and how did it contribute to sustainable development? We'd hardly lack that. So it is very important to take note of this.
I'm Arif Salim Mohammed. I'm a management consultant, and I have been in the development world for about 7.5 years, including with DFID and PwC. One of the major aspects as a program manager or a program officer that we faced very much was during the stakeholder analysis. When we say yes, and we will get the monitoring and evaluation reports with the financials every quarter. But there's much more details, much more detail that's required than what is said in the project, because you have to take these financials back to convince that we've actually produced something and that we are worthy of having more funding in order to continue. All right? How do you expect a person who's on the ground for M&E to respond to all that, what comes on the desk? I'd like to take it back to say that every program should actually have a management team of at least 2 people who would relay this information back and forth without disturbing the flow of the person on the ground, who is a technical person mostly, to be able to respond to what the OVIs are and what your objectives are for the project. Okay? Secondly, there's a lot of force majeure this time. Of those who started 5 years ago on any program, or even 1 year ago, did you ever envisage there would be COVID? So there has to be an allowance for something like force majeure, and this is what I equate it to. How are you going to flex it around that to be able to meet your aims and objectives? Because your salaries will have to be paid. We can't stop paying salaries. And you haven't really produced much on the ground. How do you take that about? So those are aspects I would just like us to think about without losing the practicalities on the ground. Thank you.
I would like to address the first takeaway, number one, which says that all parties should understand program theory of change and the actions during adaptive processes. As a consultant, of course, the first thing that I did was to go to the theory of change. And the theory of change was the initial theory of change when the organization, when they started developing their program. But at the time when they started implementing in 2015, there were some contextual changes with the advent of a new governance, new government, the fifth government. So there are some changes. And it seems that the assumptions of the theory of change in the beginning were shifting. And for my question is, I tried to understand the TOC in the beginning, and I wanted to see the one that changed later on. So the question posed is, which theory of change did you try to have the different organization or different donors, reviewers understands? That is a question to the presenters and to I4&D. I'm a bit curious to know, because I tried by myself to understand the first theory of change, and I was struggling to understand the one that was shifting later on. Thank you very much.
Mine is just some few contributions. First and foremost, I would like to say that the participants here, we as participants, actually we don't reflect much of what, in my opinion, from the project environments. So what I'm suggesting is that we have been sitting, since I came up to join the policy forum, we've been sitting in these big hotels. Why can't you just, in one day, choose a venue whereby we go to the project and see these things, you see? Participate, seeing what has been done, and also get some opinions from those people who have been taken on board with those projects. That is, I'm recommending to look for a venue whereby, when it is possible, to have these forums in the project area, to have a reflection, you see. Otherwise, these youngsters, they've never been visited even the villages, so that they get at what the grassroots is all about. So even the participants, I'm recommending that when we are talking of reviewing these projects, let us invite people from the projects, maybe 2, 3, it doesn't cost much, so that they come and participate, okay? And the format of the reports, I'm more concerned about this, especially they have not presented the SDGs, whereby we say poverty alleviation, and these reports are given in volumes. I mean, even those who have done the research, they don't read. They put them in shelves. Let alone those who have been researched, like the villagers, the grassroots. So let us consider also the format of reports which are friendly, more friendly, which they can be absorbed by those whom we have taken them during the research. Thank you very much.
I don't have a question as such, but a concern regarding the 7 takeaways. We have said all parties should understand the program terms of change and the actions during adaptive process. Reviewers and midterm evaluators should understand the interests of implementers and program managers rather than focusing on the donors' interests. I agree, but what about the primary objective of the program? I thought, my understanding, reviewers and the evaluators should of course focus how has the program achieved the objective of the program. This was my concern. Rather than fine, it's true. Instead of concentrating on interests of the donors, how has the program achieved? What are the impacts of the program to the beneficiaries? Thank you.
Ni kwa kiasi gani wao hili swali wamelifanyia kazi kutoa kama experiences kuinvolve law constitution katika kufanya evaluations?
I would like to know, how have you learned from those failures? Perhaps you can group it from community-based, program team, and even from donors. Thank you.
We are implementing products which are funded by other people. I mean, maybe it can be donors or contribution from any stakeholders. So what I think, those organizations that are implementing, of course, should try to follow the theory of change. But in addition to that, because they are doing the field activities and they know what is really changing in the actual environment, then we should also focusing on reporting the lesson learned in day-to-day activities, so that when maybe we don't meet the objective, but we should also try to document something that other people would either come to do research on it, or just try to see how we'll tackle them if it happens, it brings some problem to the project. So we should make sure that we share everything so that people can know what is really working or not working. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to take this opportunity. I have a question. There's a point in your slides, say that all parties should understand the program, theory of change, and the action during the adaptive process. My concern is, how can you make someone at the village level, at the grassroots level, to understand what the theory of change is? As you say that the program should be inclusive. How can you make it possible? Let's take people at the grassroots level, maybe based at your experience level. Have you ever experienced this situation? How did you cope? How did you manage to convince these people? Or else to educate them to understand the theory of change so that they can understand the project as well. I want you to share with us the experience, if you ever experienced. Thank you.
I would like to make a contribution or just a concern. As on page 7, you say local institutions should be included in the evaluation and review teams to get local perspective on the process and results. And Sis Gloria, you explained it, and from my understanding is when you want to include local people, we don't have to start from the results or the process of monitoring. We should start from the beginning when we are learning the program. And we can refer back to the issue of Kilosa, of the net of malaria. They didn't use because they were not involved before. They were involved after and in the process. So we should be careful on this. Thank you.
I'm here to explain the theory of change. Actually, the theory of change is like, it's a technical part of the program. So most of the time, the theory of change, we are dealing with donors and the implementer and the stakeholder who are implementing that program. It's very difficult to tell the theory of change to the normal citizen, to tell like, you have to do this and this is that assumption, and maybe if assumption that will not happen, this will happen, this is our target, and this is the indicator. That is very too much for the normal citizen. So most of the time, the theory of change, it's like a technical, and when we go to the community, I want to answer for the one who was saying, like, how are we going to involve the community to understand the theory of change? When you go to the community, most of the time, because we are doing the program and they are the one who will be benefit from that program. So when we are there, they are the one who have to identify their problem. It's not us that we are going to there and say that this is your problem. No, we are going there and to learn their problem. And by learning their problem, they have their own ways of adapting that problem, because sometimes they use their own ways to adapt them, or mechanism to adapt that problem. So from that mechanism, that is when we add value for that mechanism. So at the end, we are asking them, what do we want to see at the end? Maybe they say at the end, we want to see A, B, C. Then from there, we come now to prepare theory of change to target what they want to see at the end. And because we are going to implement the program with them, always we are doing reflection with them to see, do you see that we are going in the right direction? If not, that is when you come to like the good of adaptive program. If it's not going there, we have to change our strategy to go through that. And when you come to the technical now, when I'm saying about the theory of change is like a map or a blueprint on where you're going. It's not like I want to increase maybe number of students in school. You have to have a blueprint. You have to have a design, what I should do and what I should not, and who will be there to do what. So that's the theory of change. That's why I'm saying the people who should understand the theory of change are the donors, because they're the one who give us fund, and also the implementers who implement the program, and the stakeholders who are working to that program. So this is our designing board. We have to do A, B, C to reach D. So from there, that is when we look like the picture. And these are the assumptions. If A and B will happen, we are sure that we'll get to our target. If this will not happen, then we'll fail our target. So it's just a blue map, like a print, to see where we are going. Every program, they have their own theory of change, and it's not the same. We have ours, and the other, they have theirs. Yeah.
So it's very key as an implementer to understand your own theory of change, because as an implementer, you have to have a theory of change, a blueprint which elaborates where you're heading to. You understand now, right? Thank you.
Yeah, there is another one. He said the local institution, they have to be included from the beginning. I really understand your concern, yes, but the way we did in our presentation, there are these reviewers which are commissioned by donors, because the donors, they have their indicators to look on the program if the program is performing well. So they have their people to come to verify. That's why we say these people always, when they come, they also have to understand the theory of change, because if you don't understand the theory of change, you cannot understand what I'm doing. So of course, this local institution, they have to come to understand the theory of change, to understand my indicators, so they can go to review me in the field. Like the Shamsha was said there, she came as a consultant, a gender consultant, but we gave her a theory of change, we gave her a framework, we gave her these are our indicator. So whatever you are doing, these are the things which you are focused on. So whoever who is coming, the local institution, whoever, if you come to ECRIF, University of Dar es Salaam, or report, whoever, they have to be introduced to the theory of change and the result framework.
How do you get people involved in the local communities to accommodate them in your theory of change? I think that's what people need to understand, right? Yes.
When we go into doing the program, it's not like we are coming here and say, this is your problem, never. As we say in the slide there, the way we are doing our program, the approach, we emphasize, we go there and learning what is the problem of this area. And by learning, we are learning with the people who are living there. Like I'll meet with the women, I'll meet with the people with their disability, how the problem affects them, how this problem affects women, how this problem affects youth, how this problem affects the leaders, political leaders. So after learning from them, then we are asking them, what do you want to see? The youth, they will tell at the end, I want to see this. The people living with disability, they will say, at the end, I want to see this. Everyone will give you the target. Then from there, we come now to prepare our theory of change, and we go back there. We don't go there with our theory of change, because they want to understand this theory of change is for us to lead us to reach their target.
unavyo intervene, nafikiri yote tunajua unavyo intervene kwenye community, kuanza kuleta watu kukubaliana kwamba tunahitaji. Si ndio? Then the second is, kama tunahitaji, what do we want? And how do we reach there? So the reaching there ndio theory of change, ile nadharia yote inayokupeleka jinsi unapofika kule. Kwa hiyo majadiliano yetu tunapokuwa tunaenda nayo, I would suggest and advise, let us not pick English vocabularies when we are discussing with the communities. Let us adapt them in a language which can help them understand. But of course, when we are documenting, kwa sababu natakiwa accountable, andika theory of change. Sijui kama naeleweka. Because this is very important sometimes for us kuvua makoti ya project and we become development facilitators. Sijui mnaeleweka. Vua koti la project officer and become a development facilitator. In that case, misamiati ile haitakusumbua. That requires capacity. I think it's one of the things which probably we didn't bring out. And that capacity is what we are saying itatusaidia kuwa na a common understanding. Then one more thing about, and I think comment nyingine iliyotoka, your comment about stakeholder analysis. I think this is also what we are saying about. You do a poor stakeholder analysis, your participation and engagement will be weak. And the results. Kwa sababu at the end of the day, unaposema nimeacha result, wanakuuliza which results and for who. Sindio? So the stakeholder analysis, unfortunately kwa experience ambayo tunaipata kwenye kazi hii na kazi nyingine, is what we don't invest on a lot. We do a hash job, sometimes inakuwa more like a paperwork, tuna document, but we don't internalize what the stakeholders want. Sasa process ya kwa nini, mtu ameuliza swali ni wapi tulipo fail, si ndio? At some point in our program, we failed at the stage of stakeholder analysis. You know what a stakeholder analysis means? Stakeholder analysis sio idadi ya wadau, but rather the interest of each stakeholder and the power dynamics. Nguvu ya maamuzi kila stakeholder alionayo. Unafikia mahali una realize kwamba tulipokwenda hapa kuna competing and contradicting and conflicting needs. Tukienda na hawa mpaka mwisho, probably the needs are there, but the how may not come up inavyokuja. So failing is not abandoning. Sindio, eh? Failing is packing so that another person can take it over, or you can come back to it. So in our program, we failed, tunatumia neno kufail, few programs. One was on sunflower intervention. Sio kwamba sunflower was not important, lakini we felt that the process of going forward may not necessarily realize the results we want. But there are other ways in the projects of which we failed, not in the projects, but we failed in the how. Kwamba hii the how haitufikii tunapokwenda, let us change direction ili tuweze kwenda mahali pengine. Sasa tulikuwa na benefit ya kutoanza na logical framework. Glory hapa alikuwa na raha kweli. Kwa sababu she was devising her monitoring framework every month ili commit tunavyokwenda. Angekuwa na logical framework leo angekuwa amekonda hapa. Nitaka kuongeza hivyo vitu vichache, lakini moja ile ya policy forum kuhama venue na mimi naifagilia ili kusudi tuende sehemu nyingine ambako utakula muhogo na uji kama breakfast talk. Asante sana.
Tunapokuja kwenye theory of change, practicability, watu wengi tulioko hapa, engagement ya local wananchi katika theory of change development sometimes inachukua na ni jambo lenyewe lilivyo, ni nadharia. Take for instance, Donna ametangaza call for proposal submission is 2 weeks from now. And you are developing a theory of change that will have to involve the local wananchi. I'm not doing using the grassroots.
Fadhali asante.
The local wananchi. Katika uhalisia, we are assuming that this is the needs of the local wananchi. Na tunaiweka katika katika karatasi, tukipata fedha tutarudi kwa mambo ya That's why sometimes inakuwa ni vigumu tunapokuwa kwenda katika actual implementation, na tunapoangalia the way we have been doing these things, ni kwamba the really engagement of these people sometimes is in a miss, kwa sababu we don't have the powers. Local engagement has been always a problem to be really practical and the needs of the people we are focusing on.
Mimi nashangaa na hizi tafiti za watafiti mnaoitwa researchers. Kwa mfano, tafiti nyingi zinazoandikwa nasikia zinaishia kwenye makabati. Sasa mimi nafurahi kukaribishwa kwenye hii monitoring and evaluation. Natumaini monitoring kwa Kiswahili inaitwa ufuatiliaji. Na evaluation unafanya tathmini ya kitu unachokifuatilia. Sasa kuna kitu hapa kimesemwa Bureau of Change. Kwa mfano una project yako. Kwa mfano mimi Martina nimeandika project yangu. Nataka ni waengage wale watu wanaosema kwenye grassroots. Kwa kweli hii grassroots hili neno mimi huwa linanikera sana. Mimi ningeungana na huyo baba aliyekaa, labda tuwaite wananchi wa kawaida wa vijijini. Kwa mfano nimeandika project yangu na nimeipeleka, labda nimechagua mkoa wa Pwani, nika-identify vijiji, labda nime-identify Mwanambaya, nikaingia kijiji cha Dondwe, nikaingia kijiji cha Magoza. Nataka nifanye hiyo project, niwapelekee wale wananchi niliowalenga wanaoitwa beneficiaries. Sasa unapoenda kijijini, lazima unapotaka kupeleka ile project yako, you have to engage those village leaders, wale wana vijiji, kuanzia mwenyekiti wa kitongoji, mtendaji wa vijiji vile, kumuengage na mwenyekiti wa kijiji. Ukifika pale unaita uongozi wa kijiji, mimi nimekuja na andiko langu. Andiko langu lina lengo hili na hili na hili, A, B and C. Nachotaka nifanye project kwenye kijiji hiki, labda nimeona kuna matatizo haya na haya. Kwa hiyo mwenyekiti wa kitongoji, mwenyekiti wa kijiji na mtendaji watasaidia kukuitia wanavijiji wa pale kwenye vile vijiji lengwa, kwamba kuna project hii tumeipata katika mkoa wa Mkuranga, labda vijiji fulani ambavyo vimekuwa identified. Kwa hiyo unapoanza, wale wananchi wanapoitwa, waruhusu wenyewe waibue matatizo walionayo pale kijijini. Labda wanataka kisima, labda wanataka mbolea, labda wanataka demonstration plots zianzishwe pale kijijini, ili wale wengine ule utafiti wako na upeleka pale waweze kuiga, ili wainue vipato katika mashamba yao. Wafuate zile teknoloji zote zinazotakiwa katika kilimo. Kwa hiyo unapoenda pale lazima waachie wananchi waibue matatizo. Watakwambia wewe mtafiti, kama ni bwana shamba, kama ni nani, kwamba sisi tatizo letu ni hili na hili na hili na hili. Kwa hiyo kubaliani nao. Kwa hiyo hawa ndio walengwa wako, ndio beneficiaries watakao pokea hiyo project yako na kuiendeleza. Sasa kinacholeta matatizo, project yako, labda hao sponsors wako wamemaliza, hela ya utafiti imeisha. Wale wanakijiji wanakusubiri, Marieta atakuja sijui mwezi gani, mwaka gani kuendeleza huu utafiti. Kumbe wewe hela ya sponsors imeisha. Mimi nachoomba kwa serikali yetu sikivu, hizi tafiti kama sponsors wameshaondoa mikono yao, basi serikali iendeleze hizi tafiti, wasaidie hao watafiti wanaojipinda kuandika hizi project zao, wapate sponsors ili ile project ambayo imewanufaisha wale wakulima wa pale iweze kuendelea, ndio maendeleo yatakuja. Mimi ndio maoni yangu. Asante.
Asante sana. Thank you very much. And I'd just like to make an emphasis. Hata serikali ya Tanzania nayo imekuwa sikivu. That's why they have improved the ONOD system, opportunities and obstacles for development system.
Nina observation kama tatu au sasa na tatu, let me niishie kwenye tatu. La kwanza, ukiangalia kwa mapana yake hizi takeaway ambazo wenzetu wataalamu wa I4ID wana present, zimejikita zaidi kwenye maegemeo ya matakwa ya dona kuanzia 1 mpaka 6. Ukifika 7 Pale chini kabisa kuna neno linatumika linasema local institutions should be included in the evaluation and review teams to get local perspectives on the process and result. Sasa inarudi kwa mwananchi. Si ndio? Kidogo inarudi kwa mwananchi. Hoja ya mwenzangu pale na hoja ya mama na hoja ya theory of change inamsemea zaidi mwananchi. Si ndio? Na mwananchi kwamba na yeye ni sehemu ya mahitaji yanayoshindana ya kutathmini matokeo ya mradi. Si ndio bana? Title inasema competing needs and demands. Katika masuala mazima ya tathmini ya miradi. Mwananchi hapa anaachwa, ni mtazamo wangu, si ndio? Ni mtazamo wangu. Anaachwa kidogo, dona anasikika zaidi. Sikatai. Juzi hapa Rais Kikwete amesemaje? Si mnakumbuka statement yake? Ukichukua hela za mtu, si ndio? Ana haki ya kufuatilia jinsi ulivyotumia. Amesema juzi hapa wakati tunamzika Rais Kikwete, Rais Mkapa. Sikatai, donors wamekupa hela, lazima utafuatilia, lakini tukumbuke mahitaji ya wananchi. Asante Imani ameibua swala moja kubwa sana. Na serikali imeachwa. Sioni the word government here. Tunafanya miradi mikubwa sana chini ya Kanisa Katoliki na Baraza la Maaskofu na BAKWATA na wenzetu wa CCT. Tunatumia mifumo ya ufuatiliaji wa matokeo ya miradi ya serikali. Pima kadi, community scorecards, ndio community hearing, multi-stakeholders meeting. Ni sehemu ya upimaji wa matokeo, si ndio? Ya miradi katika maendeleo. Sasa sioni adaptation ya thinking or perspective ya serikali katika hizi 7 takeaways. Ni mtazamo wangu tu. Je, miradi hii haiko linked na serikali? Je, serikali haipo? Nimeona kuna serikali pale. Part of the partners ni serikali. Ingine ningependa kuomba au kuona katika uzoefu wenu wa miaka 5, mmeanza mwaka 2016. Je, kunapokuwa na complex environment ambayo dona kapeleka hela, jamii imepokea mradi, kazi imefanyika miaka 2 miezi 18. Wakati wa uchukuaji wa dondoo za matokeo ya mradi kunakuwa na complex situation. Niwaambie, mimi nimefanya kazi Ngorongoro kule Waso, Loliondo, Ololoso, Kwan, yale maeneo ambayo mfalme wa Dubai amejenga airport karibu na Clays Camp, na mpaka wetu na Kenya kule Serengeti. Tulifanya mradi mkubwa sana wa Oxfam ambao tumepeleka hela kwenye jamii, tumepata shida kuingia na kutoka. Mwisho wa siku kwenye kuchukua matokeo, hata kutua na ndege pale Waso hamruhusiwi. Mkuu wa wilaya maana maswali mengi na nyie. Council ambayo mmefanya nao kazi inawakimbia. Jamii inafarakana na serikali, serikali inasema nyie mnafarakanisha wananchi na serikali. Ukivuka kuelekea Ololoso kwani palipojengwa uwanja mkubwa sana wa airport ya mfalme wa Dubai, hamruhusiwi kwenda, FFU wanafuata ama Land Rover, dona anataka matokeo. Umeelewa point yangu? Complex situation kama hizo zenye kuhitaji sound judgment. Umeelewa bana? Unachukuaje matokeo ya mradi? Nilikuwa nataka tu nione perspective zenu kwenye eneo hilo. Kikubwa ambacho mimi ningependa tujifunze nacho ni hizi adaptive programming. Jinsi ya kuingia katika mradi, kuangalia watu wanataka nini, kuendana na dira yao ya maendeleo, alafu una adopt, unafanya nao kazi. Nadhani ni nzuri sana. Sijaona inclusion ya FBOs institutions au majimbo ya Katoliki au kama kanisa ya CCT katika mradi wenu. Nawakaribisha sana kuingia humo. Kwa sababu gani? Najua asilimia karibia 50 ya utoaji wa huduma za elimu na afya nchini zinafanywa na mashirika ya kiimani. Watanzania leo kiomba mahitaji yao makubwa nini? Maji, afya na elimu. Ninaomba mjiongee na muapproach taasisi za kiimani. Zinahangaika na maskini, watoto wa shule, kina mama, young mothers, people with disability, wanahangaika nao kila siku. Jongeeni nao, muwasaidie, muadopt into their development agenda. Si ndio? Mtakuta wamejenga kanisa, wamejenga dispensary, wamejenga nursery. Ukienda kwa shule mkoa hivyo amejenga msikiti, amejenga facility ya afya, amejenga shule. Ingieni pale, fanya nao kazi, tunawakaribisha kwa sababu wanachangia kwa mapana yake sehemu kubwa sana ya utoaji wa huduma za afya na elimu nchini. Hayo ni mawazo yangu, na wakaribisha Interfaith kwa maana mashirika ya kiimani. I4ID ni partners wazuri, kama kuna miaka mingine 5 ya kufanya kazi, tunaomba tukae pamoja. Nimependa sana adaptive programming. Na mimi nitaichukua iwe kama my takeaway kufanya kazi na wenzangu wa mashirika haya ya kiimani upande wa Islam na Kristo Tanzania. Shukran sana.
Thank you very much, Edmund.
This is the way, the luxury of adaptive program, because adaptive program ni tofauti na miradi mingine ambayo ni ile normal miradi kwamba this is the input, then these are the activities, this is the target. For the adaptive program, we are going, hatuna ile moja kwa moja. Yani tuna navigate along the way. And most of the adaptive program tuna focus kwenye system change. Hatu focus kwa mtu mmoja mmoja. Kwa hiyo nimeenda kijijini, nimeongea na wakina mama, wameniambia haya ndo matatizo yao, nimekutana na wakina baba, nimekutana na watu wanaoishi na ulemavu, nimekutana na vijana, and hivi vitu ndivyo wanavyovitaka. The first thing which ambao tunadili nacho ni system change. Hatuwapi watu benefit kimoja mmoja kwa sababu is not sustainable. Nikileta kisima cha maji leo hapa, kile kisima kikikwama, dona hayupo, basi wale watu wanakosa maji. Kwa hiyo we always focus on the system change. Ili hichi kisima kiendelee kuwepo, tufanyeje kwenye system? Kwa hiyo tutafanya kazi na viongozi wa kijiji, tutaleta kama ni kuna watu wachimbaji wa kampuni za visima walioko pale, tunawakaribisha ambao ni private sector. Vile vile tutamkaribisha politicians ambao ni madiwani na wabunge wa ile eneo. Kwa nini tunafanya hivi? Kwa sababu kila mtu kuna hizi approaches zinaitwa system approach au marketing system approach. Kila mtu ana benefit kivyake. Mama ata benefit mwisho wa siku kupata maji ile community, lakini politician ata benefit mwisho wa siku ataambiwa nimeleta kisima, nitapigiwa kura tena. Alafu kuna ule mchimba kisima kampuni ita benefit kwamba itaingiza income kwa kuchimba. Kwa hiyo wale wote tunawaleta meza moja, then tuna discuss tukutane wapi. So hata kama dona atakuwa amesitisha hela kwa sababu it's a system change, yule politician kwa ajili ya kupata political mileage ataenda kusaka hela popote, atazileta, atamlipa yule private sector achimbe kisima. Kwa sababu na yule private sector uchimbe kisima anahitaji kazi, hata cost too much, atashuka kwa sababu anasema kwamba nitakupa labda uchimbe visima viwili, kwa hela hiyo punguza. At the same time ukichimba hapa kijiji big kiona kitakuhitaji. Kwa hiyo you bring all these stakeholders on the table, kila mtu ana benefit yake, and from there you reach at the center, yani mnakutana katikati, which also this is the system change, kwamba hata dona kama ataondoka, lakini people they'll work through their own way. Hiyo ni moja kwa mama yangu. Pili kwa kaka yangu, umezungumzia zile takeaway zetu kwamba tumefocus sana kwa dona kuliko kwa mtu wa kawaida. Yes, kwa sababu mwananchi wa kawaida hahitaji theory of change. Hata mimi mtu akiniletea mradi nikiwa kama mwananchi, mimi uniletee theory of change na nihusu nini? Mimi ninachotaka ni faida, target. At the end nataka kuona maendeleo kwenye mtaa wangu. Kwa hiyo watu ambao tunapata challenge tunavutana ni donors na reviewers kwenye documentation. Mimi mwananchi tingoambia nimedocument indicators juu vile vitu ambavyo vinanionyeshia vinaelekea kwenye target. Havimuhusu. Yeye anachotaka mwisho wa siku nione barabara, mimi mwisho wa siku nione maji, this is my target. Hospitali, shule, this is my target. Lakini sijui nilikuwa nataka kuona mifuko mingapi ya simenti iko pale. That is not my problem. My problem ni kuona shule. Kwa hiyo ndio maana tumefocus, because these are the challenge. Dona anakupa hela yake, anataka uwe accountable. Kwamba mimi nimekupa this amount, nataka uwe accountable. At the same time, donor staff that's sitting on the office, they don't know reality on the field. Sisi ndo tunaingia kwenye field. Kwa hiyo by the time unakuja unamwandikia report anakuambia no way, sikubaliani na hii report. Kwa hiyo that is the challenge. That's why tunataka kushare kwamba tuone we have to navigate with these donors. At the same time the same donor anamtuma reviewer wake aje kukagua kazi yako. The reviewer is coming here, flying in, hajui Tanzania, anakuja anasoma theory of change, anaenda field, hajui kuongea Kiswahili, anakuwa translated au haongei kabisa, ana observe, anakuja kuandika analysis yake yeye. Kwa hiyo unakuta ana miss ile test ya local perspective, ambao which also donor anaweza kesi kwamba mradi au perform. Lakini ni reality, mradi una perform kwa sababu kungekuwa na local person atakwambia fine, tumeona hii kwa sababu kutokana na political maybe regime, labda tumeona hii kwa sababu ya ile tribe ya pale, this is their culture, wana behave this way, that's why results came this way. Lakini that one it's missed to the people who are coming in, which they don't know the real context of where we are working. Kwenye complex of interest, how do we balance there? The government is here, the donors here, implement are we here? So for us, as I said, tunakuwa na hiyo inclusivity tunamuinvolve donors at each stage. This is our theory of change. Donor, are you okay? Are you interested here? Yes. Then we are going to the field. And we have this reflection section, kwamba tunawaita donor every after 3 months, kwamba tukam kwenye reflection. Theories of change ilikuwa inasema hivi, lakini kuna decision ambazo tumezifanya field kutokana na reality in the field. Because somehow we have to change on the approach. That is when we reflect what works and what doesn't work and why and the way forward. And on this reflection, tunamuita donor, tunakuwa sisi implementer, tunawaita stakeholder. When I'm talking about stakeholder, it's the government stakeholder because we are changing the system. We are not there kwamba tukimaliza tukiondoka vitu vinakufa. Kwa hiyo kutakuwa na wakuu wa wilaya, wakuu wa mkoa, sometimes politician, madiwani, wale watu ambao ni watu yani tuseme people ambao wanakuwa na majina makubwa ambao people they trust them on the community. Wanakuepo pale. Kwa hiyo pale tunawaambia jamani, target yetu ilikuwa hii and this is our approach. Lakini wakati tunafanya implementation, we challenge 1, 2, 3. Imebidi tubadilishe approach. Unajua wao wanaijua zaidi. Mwingine atakwambia, okay, if this is the problem, I'll talk with so and so, will help us. So from there, that is when we somehow neutralize this complex interest. Asante.
Naomba ni briefly tu ni appreciate kwa niaba ya mwenzangu. Kwa kweli tumepata surprise ya interest ya topic. Ni nzuri, lakini take away nyingine tunayoipata hapa ni kwamba this is a debate we need to continue having kwenye maeneo yetu tunapofanya kazi. Na tukiwa na hii debate itatusaidia pia sisi kujenga capacity yetu ya kunegotiate hizo priorities na hizo demands. Na hizi nafikiri kama mwenzetu alivyouliza pale, sio tu za donor but also from the other stakeholders. Nitaka kuweka muktadha tu kwamba program yetu unfortunately, deliberately tulifanya kazi na taasisi zaidi kuliko na jamii moja kwa moja. Kwa hiyo involvement ya jamii on the ground ilikuwa not that strong. Sisi tumefanya kazi na taasisi na nyingi ni za serikali. Miradi yote tuliyozungumza hapa including mambo ya regional investment facilitation ni serikali. Lakini lengo letu, maana ya lile neno institutions, sio taasisi. Institution with a small I. Maana ya kwamba the rule of the game, how decisions are made. This watu wanaofanya maamuzi katika zile taasisi zao, mashirika yao, that's what we have been working on. How do we influence those changes badala ya kufanya kazi na zile taasisi kubwa ambazo tunazungumzia hapa. Nafikiri kitu kingine ambacho mwenzangu ameshamalizia vyote hapa ni kwamba tunakubali kwamba context ya M&E inahitajika mahali popote, na presentation hii ilikuwa imejikita kwenye mambo ya documentation, monitoring na evaluation kuliko project implementation. Kote huko tunajua, lakini muktadha huu ndio uliokuwa umetupeleka kuwa na hizi, ila tunadhani kwamba next time tutakuwa tuna focus zaidi kwenye maeneo yaliyosuggestiwa. Unfortunately, mradi wa I4ID auendelee miaka 5 mingine nayo kuja, una miezi 2 iliyobaki. Kwa hiyo, lakini kwa maana ya dhana ya adaptive programming, I4ID is not the first one. Donors wengi na watu wengi wameshaibeba adaptive programming, hata ukigoogle utaipata, itatusaidia sana kujifunza jinsi mahali pa kwenda. Na wawezeshaji Gloria yupo na wengine wapo, karibuni sana.
Asante sana. A round of applause for Gloria and Mr. Makongo. Thank you very much. Now, without wasting any more time, ningependa kuwashukuru sana wote ambao mmeweza kujumuika na sisi leo. Tumechanganya Kiingereza na Kiswahili. Our medium of communication usually is English, but it's fine. We'd like to thank you very, very much for attending, and we'll see you next month in October, inshallah. In October, where we'll have possibly United Nations Association of Tanzania with the 442 guidelines. Asanteni na karibuni tena.